The recent wave of tariffs imposed by former President Donald Trump on Brazil is sparking debates that go far beyond trade figures and diplomatic talking points. At first glance, these measures might seem like mere moves in a geopolitical chess game. However, for millions of Americans, the impact is not abstract or distant. It's personal, and it's hitting home in very real and painful ways. These tariffs are changing prices at supermarkets, affecting jobs in key industries, and deepening tensions in the already strained economic reality that so many U.S. families are navigating in 2025. Let's be clear, Brazil is not just some minor trade partner. It is one of the world's largest exporters of agricultural goods, metals, and raw materials that directly feed into the supply chains of American businesses. From soybeans and orange juice to iron ore and beef, the United States has long relied on Brazilian products to stabilize its markets and keep prices down. By targeting Brazil with aggressive tariffs, Trump has not only stirred up political tensions, but also caused a ripple effect that's making life more expensive for everyday Americans. One of the first and most visible impacts of these tariffs is at the grocery store. Consumers across the U.S. have already noticed the price tags creeping upward on common household items like meat, coffee, and fresh produce. For example, tariffs on Brazilian beef and poultry imports have forced food distributors to turn to more expensive sources or scale down supply, leading to shortages and rising prices. In poorer communities and among middle-class families already struggling with inflation, these extra costs are not just annoying, they're unsustainable. Let's take coffee as a concrete case. Brazil is the largest exporter of coffee in the world. When tariffs are slapped on Brazilian coffee beans, importers either pass those extra costs directly onto the consumer or look for alternative suppliers, which often comes with its own set of logistical and financial challenges. Either way, the result is the same: higher prices for a product millions of Americans consume daily. What once cost $6.99 a bag now creeps past $10. For low-income households, this kind of price inflation isn't trivial. It alters purchasing behavior and forces cuts in other essentials. But the problem doesn't end with food. Brazil is also a critical source of raw materials like steel and aluminum. These inputs are essential for U.S. manufacturing, particularly in sectors like construction, automotive, and infrastructure development. With tariffs in place, American companies are now paying more for the materials they need, pushing those costs up the chain. This leads to higher costs for homes, cars, and public projects, and fewer jobs when companies decide to reduce spending or move operations elsewhere to escape the squeeze. Workers in the industrial belt, especially in states like Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, are beginning to feel the pinch. At first, the Trump administration framed these tariffs as protective measures designed to bring jobs back to American soil. But the reality on the ground paints a very different picture. Higher material costs have led many smaller manufacturers to downsize their workforce or shut down altogether, unable to compete with larger corporations that can absorb the hit. Instead of protecting American jobs, these tariffs may ironically be accelerating job loss in certain vulnerable sectors. What's more, the retaliatory measures from Brazil are starting to bite. In response to Trump's tariffs, Brazil has introduced its own restrictions on American exports, particularly in agriculture. This spells bad news for U.S. farmers, especially in the Midwest. Already coping with unpredictable weather patterns and rising input costs, they now find one of their largest markets less accessible. Soybean farmers, in particular, are seeing reduced demand from Brazil, driving down prices and reducing their revenue. While Trump insists that this is part of a long-term strategy to make the U.S. economically stronger, many on the ground are wondering how much more short-term pain they're expected to endure. It's also important to recognize the political theater behind these economic moves. Trump has framed these tariffs as a necessary step to assert American strength, to punish countries he accuses of taking advantage of the United States. But this tough-on-trade image hides the more complex and troubling reality that his policies are contributing to domestic instability rather than solving it. Protectionism, when applied without nuance, becomes self-defeating. And right now, millions of American families are paying the price for that blunt force approach. Some economists argue that the long-term benefits may outweigh the short-term consequences, that these tariffs could lead to new investments in U.S. industries or force Brazil to make concessions in future trade agreements. That's a possibility, but it's speculative at best. Meanwhile, the pain is very real. Every extra dollar spent on groceries, every lost job in a local factory, every canceled export deal represents real lives disrupted by political decisions made thousands of miles away from those affected. And there's another layer to consider: international reputation. The US, once seen as a beacon of free trade and open markets, is now increasingly viewed as unpredictable and insular. Other countries are adjusting by forming regional alliances and trade partnerships that exclude the US altogether. This undermines American influence globally and puts the country at a disadvantage in future negotiations. In this sense, the tariffs are not just economic tools, they are also signals. And the signals being sent today suggest instability and distrust. So where do we go from here? It's clear that a more balanced approach to international trade is needed, one that considers both the geopolitical importance of strong alliances and the domestic cost of economic isolation. Tariffs, when used strategically and selectively, can be effective. But when wielded broadly and emotionally, they risk causing more harm than good. The challenge now is whether the US can recalibrate its trade policies before more irreversible damage is done. We want to hear from you. How are these tariffs affecting your life? Have you seen changes in prices, employment, or business opportunities in your community? Do you believe these trade moves are strengthening the US economy, or making things harder for working families? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Share this video with friends and family to help spread awareness of the real-life consequences of these policies. And if you found this breakdown informative, don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth analysis on how global politics are shaping your world. Your voice matters, and we're here to explore these stories with you. Together, let's stay informed and demand smarter, more compassionate leadership, because at the end of the day, it's not just about numbers and politics. It's about people.